Hey, Bess, did you know all of your favorite podcasts, including Be There in 5, are on Amazon Music? We all know finding the best listening platform can be a challenge, but Amazon Music does it right. They make the process seamless from start to finish. You can even listen on any ALEXA powered devices you have. Don't want to trigger her. All you have to say is, hey, girl, insert name here, play the podcast Be There in 5 on Amazon Music. Or if you're listening on your phone, just download the Amazon Music app, search for Be There in 5, and click follow. Thanks for supporting the show. Now on to the episode. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Be There in 5 podcast. I'm Kate Kennedy, your host. Be There in 5 is a long-form, long-running podcast about pop culture, the millennial zeitgeist, but not like entertainment news always, as much as it's like the trends and like day-to-day things we participate in that make us who we are, that make us products of our time. And I love trying to connect like the lore we share to like what we're going through now. And today's episode is actually about hobbies. Hobbies, interests, Pinterests. I've thought about doing an episode about hobbies for a long time, but didn't really know, like, well, what do I say specifically? Like, do we talk about the hobbies themselves to give people ideas, the concept of hobbies? Do I talk about mine? I wasn't really sure. Then I crowdsourced kind of with a variety of prompts, like, is there a hobby you've taken on that has surprised you? What holds you back from pursuing them? Have you found community? What are like some nostalgic things you remember taking on? I mean, in the first 24 hours, got like over 100 emails, and I started reading them and like sobbing. I wasn't expecting to be so moved. I didn't expect to have so much to say. And by the time I read all of them, I had also recorded with Carmen James, who's been on the podcast before. Love her. I think last time she was on was in maybe 2022. She's been on twice. She is somebody people follow online. I feel like as much for her craftiness as her savviness. She has great range of like the things that really matter in educating her audience, to like showing us her latest crochet project, to her adorable pet bunny that's effectively an animatronic jelly cat. I feel like people like pet bunnies are so cute. Why don't more of us have pet bunnies? Anyway, so yeah, I actually am going to split this episode into two parts, which is very like archival BTI5. There was too much to say, so we'd split it into two parts, but I thought it might be a good idea. And well, I'm going to like muse in general about hobbies, tell you about my recent like resurrection of my passions that has like really, I don't know, improved my quality of life. We're going to talk about them in general, and Carmen like finding community with hobbies, and shoot the shit about rapture talk, all the important things. And then next week I'll read your stories because there's so many and they were so interesting, from metal detecting to whale watching to crafts and community and beyond. And I'll try to put that episode out like pretty soon, actually, because Life of a Showgirl is coming out Thursday night, Friday morning. And we'll do that on Patreon, but the regular episode in the main feed this week, I'll do Hobbies and Pinterest part 2, Killing Time part 2. I could talk about hobbies endlessly. It's a bit hard for me to not talk about hobbies in the context of like crafting, which I know there are more hobbies than just arts and crafts. And you guys are so much more dynamic than that. And the stories really ran the gamut of different types of hobbies that were not just related to the arts. And one of my messages I want to get across is that I think people over-associate hobbies with the arts. And if you're not artsy, that doesn't matter. There's still plenty of things we can take on. However, I will say, I think mine tend to be more involved in the arts, and as do Carmen's. And I also think millennials have a very specific relationship to hobbies. How, I don't know, like when we were kids, hobbies just happened. Like your full-time job was leisure. I mean, you went to school, but your process of like discovery and exploration of self through activities, arts, crafts, sports, Girl Scouts, etc., like that was just as important in terms of identity formation as your formal education. And not because it was like productive or Instagram worthy, but because it was fun and you were curious and time felt infinite. And I think we came of age during peak optimization culture, where everything had to have a purpose or be Pinterest perfect, ideally monetizable. Many of us monetized our hobbies in the 2010s or in pandemic era, kind of were forced to try to find hobbies as a result of being stuck inside. I think that created a bit of a weird relationship too with some of the things we did. Like, did we like that, or did we feel like we had to do that and everybody else was like in their like fairy cottagecore era that we were trying to emulate, but that's like not really our vibe. I mean, I took up the recorder again, which was just brave from a germ standpoint alone. Like that green mushy pipe to clean it was like still in there from fourth grade. I don't think that's okay. I think I have spores.
Beyond that, it's like you get older, you have jobs that demand your energy, your creative energy. If you, yeah, had kids, their activities become your activities. And now we're all living like in this media ecosystem designed to keep us scrolling instead of staying creative and curious and exploring. And as a parent, it's really easy to put yourself last. Hobbies start to feel frivolous. Like, I mean, who has time to even pick a hobby, much less refine and master a skill? And I think that's part of what I wanted to talk about today. And part of what I've learned recently is like finding time's not a thing. No one has more time. Time is the ultimate luxury. And time is like a finite resource. But like, can we reallocate time? Can we resurrect things that we've always loved that we already know how to do, but maybe aren't framing the right way in terms of like them being hobby worthy? We often talk about like the kind of downplaying or minimizing of the things we like, especially as women. And I think that like I literally did not think I had a hobby my entire life because it didn't fit like cleanly into something I was like outstanding at, because I was always kind of like doodling and hand lettering and, paying attention to like pop culture and music and celebrities. And I don't know, it just felt like I had a generalized pool of like girly, semi artsy hobbies that I was okay at, but not great at. But yeah, I don't know. It's like literally not about being good at something. It's not about the output. The way productivity seeps into your brain and becomes the yardstick for everything you do it's real poisonous in terms of our creative energy. And I think we need to really remember why Make the Friendship Bracelets, Take the Moment and Taste It hit so differently. Like that line, I feel like the second we all heard it, it made us like want to cry and we couldn't even place why. But I think part of it has to do with not only like sitting down in groups and making something custom for somebody that you'd give to for free just because you were thinking of them and just because you thought they'd like it. Beyond that, we've convened in groups since the beginning of time as women to gab, to decompress, to make beautiful things, or more importantly, to not even talk at all. The arts and crafts table was a special place for me as a shy child because it's also the safe space to go at a day camp or a Girl Scouts meeting where it was perfectly fine to not talk at all and you could still belong. And I think that's really beautiful. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I need to tell you guys. I mean, if there's one thing I know about the Beths, besides that we all have a tendency to not really want to get in trouble, it's that we all love some light crafting. Whether it was back in the day making a Jacob's ladder at a summer camp, or, I would sink a good 4 to 6 hours into just like folding paper, paper fortune teller, paper footballs. I wanted my note passing to be elite, but my mom, I mean, she was, so much of my childhood was made by activities and crafting that she put together. And like that DIY energy has taken me so far in life to the point where I've DIY'd my entire career in life. I just don't feel like we talk enough about how often many of us painted terracotta pots to look like watermelons.
I think I'm so prolific with the beauty blender today when doing a full bead because of so much sponge painting.
We were very in my house into like crafts in like the Family Circle magazine. Like American Girl had so many offshoot craft things. My God, jazz up your jeans, jazz. So Bethany Frankel's jeans party could bedazzle on Real Housewives of New York. But ours were less like true religion and more stunning, like only the finest plastic gems from a Ben Franklin Crafts glued to a jean jacket that was so nice you couldn't even wear it. I mean, you wouldn't dare get paint on that at a Color Me Mine. I went to a lot of Color Me Mines for birthday parties, which I still think that painting pottery is something that I would think I'm good at, but in practice, my God, has everything I've ever made at one of those places objectively hideous and thick. We all know my husband took me glass blowing because I love the show Blown Away on Netflix. And you've truly never drank out of a cup with a thicker lip. I mean, that shit's hard. And every pottery thing I've ever made is pretty much not functional. But I still had a good time, and that's really all that matters. I spent a lot of time putting beads on safety pins, and I would imagine there was about an 8-year stretch where not a sheep in the world had a trace of wool left. because of how many goddamn fleece blankets we all made by tying 2 sheets of fleece together. My God, that was a lot of knotting, a lot of knotting. More knots than were in my hair when I tried to sleep in Molly McIntyre's World War II pin curls. Those were pretty painful. Not as painful as the pink sponge curlers that 90s cheerleader nightmares were made of. Was I ever a 90s cheerleader? No. Well, briefly in 7th grade, but not the competitive kind, which my sister did for like 1 year. We need to like have those really tight curls that I feel like now the girls just wear hair pieces. I mean, they'll never understand what we've been through. I mean, I can't get over that kids are out here buying Halloween costumes when I feel like, yeah, there was always like a girl or two in class that had that FU poodle skirt money, but the rest of us were left to our own devices with like a costume box in the attic. There was like a mothball-laden island of misfit garments. Like, you haven't, it's character building to have to show up at trick-or-treating with something that resembles a put-together Halloween costume, but all you're working with is like glasses without lenses, a cowboy hat or like questionable sombrero, scarves that like smell a little off, 180s bridesmaid's dress, like jazz band cummerbund, a set of vampire teeth, maybe a graduation cap, and like some clip-on earrings that have a medieval torture level of clamp you really don't see outside of a rogue snap of a 3-ring binder. I mean, truly, when Halloween, my sister came downstairs dressed as the ghost of a Mexican bride. Because why be dressed as a bride, a woman from Mexico, or a ghost when you can be a turducken and choose all 3? I think what happened was we used to live in San Diego, and my parents had a lot of stuff from trips to Mexico, and there was this beautiful dress from there. What's a gal to do when that's all that's left at the bottom of the box but paint your face white, choose a heritage that is not yours, and cosplay a person with a backstory who, I guess, perished walking down the aisle? Not entirely clear, but that certainly was a classic. My most memorable costume was after a traumatic experience related to hobbyist crafting. I was forever changed when I first realized we were no longer putting effort into things, and traumatized after one particular Halloween when I walked up to the school carnival and realized, oh, people are basically wearing normal clothes and calling themselves a witch or a grim reaper now. And I looked down and I was wearing a literal trash bag, but not just a trash bag. It was a clear one that we cut in holes for the legs and the arms and tied at the neck and stuffed with a variety of multicolored balloons and slapped a Jelly Belly logo on the front, and I was a giant bag of jelly beans. Now, if you're already a lot taller than your classmates and now you've effectively made yourself wider and everybody went the more sexy route and you literally made yourself a figureless bag of beans, you can understand why this was a bit of an embarrassing moment for me. And I squeaked all the way home, had to pop every single one of my balloons, sit upstairs and rethink my life entirely, and decided that for the foreseeable future I'd be dressing for Halloween as a pedestrian because I could not take on any more creative risks at that time. I only knew the term pedestrian because my sister, who obviously, if you know Kelly, has big school safety energy, when she was like training to man the crosswalks, they called people who walked on the street pedestrians. So I thought, well, that's a good costume because I could just wear what somebody would wear who walks on the street. But that's a very poignant memory for me because it was the first time I remember being like embarrassed of my interests or like embarrassed of my tendency to put effort into things, you know? And that does make me a little bit sad, but I believe it was a costume that we cut out from a Family Circle magazine, which was a great source of a lot of craft ideas.
I think there's a lot of topics like that orbit around the pursuit of hobbies that are interesting to talk through, because sometimes I think hobbies it's like not having them is the thing that gives people anxiety, or the idea of starting one and getting all the supplies, the shame you feel when you don't complete one. Like, I think that there's like a lot of interesting looming good and bad feelings associated with this topic. And I firmly believe the point is to try. The point is not to be the best, to sustain it, to even do it again. But like, I love trying stuff. And quite frankly, I just like the foreplay of buying supplies. A 4 p.m. trip to the art store on a dark day is peak girlhood. And even if it never goes anywhere, I'm already better off with the fresh moleskin and the small hope that tomorrow will be different with my new set of pens. And I guess I should just be clear here at the top, if we're talking the Coke Wars of crafting. In this house, we're a Michaels family. We are not in the lobby of the hobby. In this episode, I'm trying to convince you to minimize your consumption of rage bait, but if you feel like being enraged, look more into the leadership of Hobby Lobby. I also think there's an interesting layer here of the other reason that hobbies feel fraught for women in particular is that like they historically aren't taken that seriously. I mean, I was running like a very real company doing all the same work, if not more, because it was physical and with my hands. And I would kind of get laughed at and scoffed at by digital entrepreneurs and people building apps and doing startups as if they'd ask me about like my cute little business because it was craft oriented. But beyond that, anything. I mean, needlework, scrapbooking, baking, sourdough, whatever it is, so often is labeled as like cute and frivolous and not to point out the obvious double standard, but so many men's hobbies, whether it's in the garage or it's on the golf course or it's watching the game, like they're often framed as like requiring skill, requiring discipline, prestige, being a necessary, means to blow off steam after the work week, or like the appointment television style of even just watching sports makes me crazy. I actually have started to treat Dancing with the Stars that way because my group text will spoil it if I don't watch it live. And Teddy will watch it with me and dance a little, but when he starts to get ornery, yeah, this is my husband's time with him, and he knows like I watch Dancing with the Stars on Tuesdays. It just is what it is. Also, trust me, the ABC situation this week, I can't. Glad Kimmel's back. That was touch and go for a minute. I have to watch TFP as The Bachelorette. I just hope we can correct for this. I feel like in today's media landscape, I've just noticed a trend of the revival of domestic arts being entangled with like the trad wife trend and kind of like sparking debates about whether activities like sewing or baking are empowering or like anti-feminist throwbacks. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yes, you can knit without being judged. You can bake without signaling submission. These things are about gender performance, not at all about legitimate skill building and craft mastering. And the tension we hold around hobbies and the way we're judged for the ones we choose, it's so fascinating because it's not just about what it is or what you do. It's like we also are forced to care about like what it means.
But we shouldn't. Let women exist, 2025. If there's one thing you take away from this series, it's that I really want us to remember that the metric we hold ourselves to for the time we spend on ourselves, on our own identity, on our own interests, like the metric should not be, was that a good use of time? It should be, did I have a good time? Even if you throw it in the trash, even if you never do it again. Joy and leisure need to coexist with our many roles and responsibilities and the many stresses that exist in life as we get older, as the world gets crazier. If you're a parent, if you have a demanding job, like we're never going to find the time, but we have to reallocate the time and remember to pursue joy as if it's an essential nutrient. Like the way you carve out time for work, for family, for exercise, for church, for whatever it is. Like I also think that we have to remember what an important part of life leisure is and channel that version of yourself as a kid that really considered it like your full-time job outside of school was like exploration, curiosity. And even though now what I wouldn't give to be bored, God, I think about that so much as a parent, like the importance of making sure my kids are bored. I don't know if I would have found myself if not for boredom, but regardless. What was I saying?
This episode is brought to you by Liquid IV. As we transition from summer shenanigans to the focus you need for fall amidst school and work and the activities everyone has going on, and hopefully after this episode, the activities you have going on, we need energy, we need hydration, we need focus. And Liquid IV is scientifically formulated for just that. And there's zero sugar and zero crash. And when you feel like you're, starting to fade throughout the day, not feeling motivated to do your usual workout, whatever, you can ditch the glitch with zero sugar and zero crash from Liquid IV's new Energy Multiplier sugar-free hydrating energy. And just one stick and 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone, powered by Liquid IV Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. I'm headed on a plane tomorrow. I, for some reason, decided to take my toddler with me solo. Liquid IV is my non-negotiable on planes, but I especially will be needing this energy in these trying times. It's a delight that when I get my $12 lukewarm water from Starbucks cooler that apparently isn't plugged in, I at least can enjoy it when I tear and pour my Liquid IV, and my water works overtime by providing more hydration than just water alone. I'm a huge fan, loving the sugar-free energy strawberry kiwi and the sugar-free energy blackberry lemonade in this house. And ditch the glitch with zero sugar and zero crash from Liquid IV. Tear, pour, live more. Go to liquidiv.com and get 20% off your first order with code BeThereIn5 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order with code BeThereIn5 at liquidiv.com. Mark Fisher Ltd Fall 2025 is sleek, luxe, and endlessly wearable. Fall 2025 is it's a fusion of effortless style, of everyday practicality. We're reimagining fall footwear with refined silhouettes and rich textures and walkable designs. And they have the most beautiful footwear right now, from modern boots to refined classics. And apparently we're really doing boots right now. I've been trying to outfit plan for this weekend, and I feel like everyone's wearing shorts. And do you guys feel like you're people that can wear shorts and boots? I feel like everyone else can pull it off but me, but I'm going to try because I love boots. And boots take center stage with Mark Fisher Fall 2025. Very sleek, elongated silhouettes, clean lines, different size heels, different depth heels, different points, different types of toes. You can get rich autumnal hues. You can get suedes. You can get Western inspired. But also, I've ventured into a barrel jean, which I do think requires showing of the ankle to balance out just the volume of fabric. And I'm also loving their kitten heels, their ballet flats. I have a pair of kind of woven style Mary Janes that I'm taking into fall. Again, their pieces really transition well season to season and year over year, which is crazy because how can you be wearing trendy shoes that work year over year when I feel like everything I buy is the shortest shelf life? If you want to know the cool girl shoes, markfisherfootwear.com knows what's trending, but also knows that you don't want to have to be buying shoes constantly every single season. And they have so many timeless everyday styles like loafers and flats to round out the collection. I love their slingbacks, their flats. I have these woven Mary Janes called the Ivana I get so many questions about that I'm letting transition into fall. There's the Esme is this fall's must have. It's got a sleek pointed toe and a walkable kitten heel. It's a very current boot style that comes in a chocolate brown suede and a Merlot leather black suede. Has a curved top line for some added flair. There's also a shoe called the Naples. It's a city gal's dream with a fold over silhouette and edgy buckle detail. Just give it a scroll and you'll instantly see what I'm talking about. Reboot your fall wardrobe with elevated essentials from Mark Fisher. Shop the new collection and receive 10% off your purchase with my new code BeThereIn510 at markfisherfootwear.com. That's MARCFISHER footwear.com for 10% off with code BeThereIn510. So that's 5 spelled out, FIVE, and then the number 10. Thanks for supporting our sponsors and therefore the podcast. So then I get paid so I can keep making the podcast because I was lucky enough to have this be my hobby turned full-time job where I can now podcast and talk to you about hobbies.
To get into my hobbies, I don't want to spend too much time on my own because this is more about you. But I do think there's something to noticing through lines throughout our lives or things that we've always done that we've not considered a valid enough use of time to be a hobby because maybe we're not an expert or we dabble or whatever it is. I always come back to the same things, but every single time act like I never saw it coming. And I have had something come into my life recently that has really, I don't know, brought me back to life in a way. It's kind of twofold for me. One, it's getting off my phone. I'm very lucky in that my work is kind of hobbyist in nature. And staying in tune with everything that's going on and scrolling and keeping up with, pop culture and internet culture it's just part of my life and it's something I do a lot for work. And but what was once for me more of a mindless scroll now feels like a bit of an emotional minefield scroll. And as a sensitive gal, I just can't metabolize this stuff well. I can't see something horrendous in passing and bounce back. And so I've been trying to find ways to stay in touch with what's going on, but be mindful of I'm not really getting an adequate cross section of what's most important today. I'm getting the craziest shit that's happened today. Since it's really hard to make time, I don't think making time's a thing. And I think when we talk about hobbies, we can't really just be telling people to make time. Time is the ultimate luxury. It's a finite resource. It's the thing. It's if I could find that, I would, and I would do more stuff. But that's typically the issue. And a lot of you pointed me in the direction of Dr. Marina Cooley. She's a professor at Emory that her body of work is all about hobbies and the importance of them. It's really helpful in terms of one of the things she talks about is how often she will find that her subjects don't have time, but when they actually take inventory of their week, the amount of time scrolling is actually quite disproportionate to what they think it is, and how beneficial it's been to people to just reallocate the time away from doing stuff like that, and how much better it is for your soul. And I've got to say, my peace of mind, my mental health just like getting lost in doing like an art project after Teddy goes to bed.
And if you read my book, you know that like handwriting and doodling and like hand lettering and making signs is like a really specific part of my life. I just made a lot of signs when I was young, and it was kind of one of the only ways I felt I had kind of like social capital, is like whether it was like a pep rally, a birthday party, a Bible verse, something for your binder. Like I just was the go-to sign gal, and it made me feel valuable when I didn't feel like I had the trappings to pass with my looks or charisma or athleticism or academics or whatever anybody else kind of gauge their self-worth by. I could like draw decently well, not in a way that's actually skilled, but that was just like better than your average person. And yeah, all through middle school, high school, my college sorority, so many signs. I just did this all the time, but like actually had to use paint or like Sharpies, nightmare.
Everything changed for me when I came across a TikTok late one night, and a young lady was using markers on a piece of like brown craft paper. And the way this was gliding was stunning. It's like, what is this, a paint pen? It can't be. Paint pen could never. You're telling me I have to shake you, press you down for like a full minute, shake you more, do several coats of your inconsistent flow, and you still come out patchy? Get out of here, paint pens. I would never. Acrylic markers are essentially acrylic paint that have been engineered into marker form. And regular paint pens contain like a water-based pigment. The dye is suspended in a basic liquid medium, like poster paint or whatever. Stuffed into a marker's body, you have to shake and press and whatever. Acrylic markers, they have this like acrylic polymer emulsion that binds the paint. And if you get the good ones, they don't require shaking. Some of them do shake, which is fine. I don't mind shaking, but I don't want to press. I want like a nice type of like paint tip with a consistent flow. And somehow the viscosity of acrylic markers is paint-like. It's not too fast. It's not too slow. Imagine a watercolor's fluidity, just in terms of how it glides across the paper, and get rid of it, the colors bleeding or being a little bit too translucent, or the ways you can't be precise with a watercolor is something I struggle with. But imagine that flow. And then imagine a Sharpie's precision. And then blend the two. And instead of that harsh chemical bite of a Sharpie, and instead of the kind of loss of control you have with a watercolor, you have this buttery, almost luxurious glide across the paper. And when you first touch an acrylic marker to the surface, you're like, it's almost like when a figure skater is gliding across and you know they're about to lead to the perfect triple sow cow. It flows. It doesn't streak. It's clean. It goes where you want it to. There's no hesitation, like a dried out marker or the unpredictable bleed of a watercolor. It's a very confident stream of color that follows the intentions of your hand. But where it gets really magical for acrylic markers is the opacity. And this is where all roads lead back to Milky Pens, and I should have seen this coming. Unlike traditional markers that like completely bleed through everything and give you kind of wishy-washy translucent streaks where you have to draw, if you want a layered design that has multiple colors, you have to leave the spot on the page blank for it because you can't layer the colors, right? But with acrylic markers, it's like come for the steady flow, stay for the ability to layer. Because the opacity is really the star of the show here. It dries matte, and you can layer to the point where if you drew something black, it dries, then you can go draw white over it. So it allows you to draw things and work dark to light, light to dark. You can build shadows first, then you can add highlights. You can create a whole like underpainting situation, then come back with lighter tones for texture and reflected light. It makes the drawings like look so much better. And the layering of these just like is so satisfying in ways I have trouble articulating. And as I say that, I realize I'm not having any trouble articulating at all because I'm worried I just did describe this for about 5 minutes. Anyway, yeah, so they're markers. They're markers, guys. What just happened? I feel like I need a cigarette. So yes, it's the markers. It's the doing more crafts and activities with my son. That's kind of been a gateway to me getting back into this stuff because I loved crafting as a kid. And I made a poster for Teddy's birthday, for my nephew's birthday, unsolicited for my high school reunion this weekend. My friend's daughter has a birthday party November 29th. And due to the events of this past week, I have completed a very elaborate Daniel Tiger poster. It's a beautiful birthday in the neighborhood. Support your local PBS station. And that's a pretty far ways away. And I don't know if you've met me or heard the title of this podcast. Running ahead of schedule is not my vibe, if that expresses my enthusiasm for this. But also something that's really fun that I do, like I don't make banners every day,
but like I kind of do make elaborate ones that I'll slowly work on at night, and just like I'll listen to a podcast, the radio, music, or like nothing. And it is like the most effective way to decompress. And I love it. And I need excuses to zone out and just make something. It's just such a big part of my like soul that it's kind of surprising to me. Have neglected it for as long as I have. So most of it's not really about like finding new time. It's just instead of watching TV and instead of scrolling, this is where I found the time after Teddy goes to bed. But kind of also what I think is interesting about spending time on yourself and on your hobbies is it's almost like if you invest time in yourself, like it almost like produces a return in some way, shape, or form. And like when I'm able to take my own time or be creative, it's like I show up better to work. I show up better as a mom, to my relationships and stuff. And one example of this is like by kind of getting back in touch with like my craftier side, it's really shifted things for me as a mom, because when you can find overlap in your interests, it creates like bonding moments. And when we're like playing cars and stuff, we're kind of like coexisting. I'm not very good at imaginary play. Playing the cars is kind of the pits. And I understand wine moms on a whole new level, because if that's the only stimulation I'm getting on a given afternoon, it is better paired with an Aperol Spritz to just make it through. But I feel like through arts and craft stuff, we really connected, and it all started with these markers. I now will put craft paper up like in a kitchen or in the basement or whatever, and I'll draw like really elaborate or like whimsy letters like that look like different types of things, and we do a lot of like letters and numbers together. But our favorite thing to do that almost has the effect of watching TV, because it like mesmerizes him to see so many different like cars and trucks and colors on screen. But he basically will say like fire truck, ambulance, taxi cab, Jeep, whatever, rainbow tractor, like, or like purple ambulance or something. And then I'll just draw exactly what he says, and he gets to make all the specifications of like the color and the wheels and like if it has a ladder, if it whatever. It's just like he basically is like on command getting me to like draw him various types of vehicles or things with wheels. And now that I'm saying that, this is incredibly dull, but like I don't know how to explain it, but it's like a very fun activity that we do for like long periods of time in ways other things that won't occupy him. And it carries over to things I can do with him on planes, because I'll like just draw on my iPad or whatever. But it's also kind of helping him like with his coordination, because I think he watches me draw so much. Anyway, but yeah, he'll get creative and say he wants a, green ambulance carrying a pickup truck, which logistically challenging, but I can make it work. Also, I say he just turned, so this is in toddler speech. Like I can barely make out what he's saying, but and he pronounces like ambulance, ambulance. So just to be clear, when people kind of overstate the sophistication of their kid's speech, or like claim they say very profound things, that is not my child. I don't ever want to be one of those parents. It's like, oh, my 3-year-old looked at me the other day and said, "Mommy, do you think capitalism is inherently flawed?" I'm like, I don't think. Did your toddler tell you that they're concerned that the society values material wealth more than human connection? Like, okay, sure. But, I've gotten really good at drawing like anatomically correct vehicles. It's been helpful for me, because something I've struggled with as a mom is like I had trouble with the transition from like baby and younger toddler to now. Just like in terms of the level of engagement and the level of like wants to be doing stuff all the time, can't exactly express what it is, but isn't independent yet enough to like find his own things to do and play in a meaningful way. And for a while I was getting frustrated, or kind of, it was almost like I was approaching parenting like such an inconvenience, but I realized what was happening is that like when he was younger, my role was more like a lifeguard. I watched him. And then when he got into being a toddler, I was still watching him. But what I needed to be was more like a camp counselor. And ever since I like reframed and leaned into that, everything has changed. And I'm having so much more fun with it. And I never thought I'd be the person that like wants to make an activity or digs an activity. Like I never thought of myself being that kind of mom, because it looked high effort. But I did a lot of research on like low effort activities that are fun and easy that I can have prepared. And just being like a smidge prepared with stuff to do like has changed the game entirely.
the camp counselor angle has also just allowed me to like have fun, because I think parenting can be really fun and really sweet. And it just helped me to stop seeing it as like, why do you need so much attention and engagement? You're bothering me, to like, today he's going to need a lot of attention and engagement. So how can I set us up for success so I can get some things done? And he, you know what I mean? It just like took a little bit of like more planning and effort than flying by the seat of my pants all the time. And also, like, it's making me like get on the floor and get eye to eye and do things with him, since I like arts and crafts. And like, I don't know, it's been connective. It's been fun. It's, I don't know, kind of been freeing me from a level of irritation I was experiencing as a toddler parent, where I just wanted to be in lifeguard mode, where I was just making sure he was safe. But when he really wanted to be interacting more, I almost like didn't know how, because I wasn't good at playing cars. But yeah, I think in reigniting a passion of sorts, it was almost a gateway to something that helped me be a better mom and connect with my son better. So I share that not as a way to tell you to parent. I don't know shit. And then, frankly, I'm terrified of talking about motherhood on the internet, because people are like, oh, you only have one kid. That's why you're having fun. And I'm like, okay, Mackenzie, sorry, you're not having fun. I never said it was always fun. I never said you should be having more fun. You sound like a person that complains about CRT at the PTA. So I don't know if we'd be good friends anyway. And listen, I know a lot of times when, like, it's even broaching the topic of like arts and crafts and fun. Like, I've posted just the banners online, and people will almost respond in a way like, how do you have time for that? Or like, oh, my kid's birthday, I threw him in a pile of mud. And I'm like, what? And I can feel this way about like, I'm like cooking and baking and stuff. Like, I'll never be able to make my kid an elaborate cake. I'm just microwaving dino nuggets day in and day out. But I don't really feel inadequate because of that, because I know I bring other things to the table. And not that I'm like some enlightened mother, but we all have our things we do. Like when somebody has like a very cute Pinterest perfect birthday, and it's kind of annoying because you're like, that's not my priority. I don't have time to make elaborate balloon arches and goodie bags and blah, blah, blah. It almost like makes you mad at the Pinterest mom. But the thing is, you have stuff you do that the Pinterest mom doesn't. That's just how she chooses to spend her time. It doesn't mean she's doing the most and she's better than you. And meanwhile, the joke is, Pinteresty stuff doesn't really mean anything to kids. It's actually not for kids. The least generous version of being a Pinteresty mom is you're doing things for the optics to impress friends, which, like, even so, fine. But I think that's a way a lot of moms are expressing identity, is like by doing creative stuff for their kids that their kids actually don't care about. But like, it's okay to love beautiful things, and it's okay to want to spend time on detail. We all have our things we do to enrich our kids' lives in different ways. Your quality time with your kid might be playing outside or going to museums or this, that, or the other. Mine is like, we make stuff together. And you know what I mean? And I think there's, a lot of interesting discourse about like domestic arts and arts and crafts. I feel like it gets controversial. But like, being artsy or being domestic does not mean absolutely anything about how you are as a mother. I can't cook or bake. I'm not organized. I'm not clean. I do a lot of stuff with motherhood unconventionally, and in a way that almost talked me out of being a mom. And not to get off topic, but I feel like this is actually kind of relevant to hobbies. And listen, I'm being a bit snarky, but the reality is, I think we can see other people's lives as like an uncomfortable mirror for our internal struggles with maternal expectations, because there are many and they're impossible. When something feels like overwhelming for you or you don't have time for it, somebody else doing it is almost like evidence that that thing is possible. And then that can trigger your anxiety, like you're not doing enough. And I think this is another interesting thing about social media in this era, that millennials are the first to like really be parenting through this, where like we have hyper documented parenting culture. And even though I don't think every choice is performative, when it's performed online, it can feel that way. And I think genuine expressions of creativity where moms just want to do cute and fun stuff for their kids can feel like competitive judgments to somebody who's like kind of trying to figure out their own complicated relationship with maternal guilt and societal expectations. And nobody's in the wrong. I don't think anybody wants to feel that way. And I actually think it's important to like intercept those thoughts and intercept those feelings and be like, no, I'm doing enough. I'm doing absolutely everything I can with the time I have. And that mom is doing everything she can with the time she has. But how we choose to spend the time we have is different. And we're going to focus on different activities and ways we can add value and bring our gifts to the table, because we are different people. We are not just moms. We're dynamic human beings who like different things and who parent different ways. But and all I'm trying to say is that your ability to do these things has absolutely nothing to do with how good of a mother you are. And other people's ability to do them has nothing to do with how they want to make you feel or positioning themselves as being better than anybody else. I, honest to God, think that that's like how they escape. And we don't always look at it that way. Anyway, moving on.
And the other thing that is one of my is a huge through line of one of my biggest hobbies that sometimes I'll be like antsy or bored and realize where the source of the like idle time or restlessness is. And it's because since I'm a renter and I've moved a lot, I'll just always have to move, redecorate, and the volume of time it takes to find a place, furnish a place, sell stuff, buy new stuff, like hire TaskRabbit. It's just this whole thing that's like a months-long endeavor that's utterly consuming that I actually kind of love the thrill of using what we have and making a space work and like a refresh of space. And I'm just so used to not seeing the same stuff over and over. I get bored if I live somewhere too long. I don't know how to decorate like aesthetically against anybody else's taste, but I like decorating my own homes and making like renter-friendly modifications to the point where I actually tried to start a business about this back in the 2010s called The Least You Can Do. People would pay me to do like truly small, cheap cosmetic adjustments in rental apartments. And I'd wow them with how much more they could get and how much more satisfied tenants would be. Because for the love of God, if you don't have like a high value wood cabinet in a more timeless tone, give it a stain, give it a paint. Listen, I'm not a monster. I'm not out here painting brick. But like if for like a rundown Chicago, 1-2 bed, like that's, a third floor walk up that is kind of gross, but like has so much vintage charm. Like there's just no reason to not make it a little cute. And from light fixtures to backsplash to paint or stain and like tiny modifications to like hardware. And I don't know, sometimes I just feel like landlords and Airbnb owners, I'm like, is there a correlation between people who pursue the ownership and renting of Airbnbs and people who have objectively abysmal taste, who will put money into furnishing and accessorizing? It's not that stuff's not there. It's not that it's not new. It's that it operates in an offensive liminal space between slightly curated to justify premium pricing, but inoffensive in the broadest possible manner that it's completely void of all taste. It's generic yet ugly. It's optimized for photos and it's like technically they're staged, but for whom? For what? And when I walk into a stale place with no discernible taste, yet everything in there is new and actually did cost money and could have been spent on better stuff, and I see that sign staring at me that says adventure awaits when all that's sitting in front of me is boredom guaranteed, I'm so uninspired. Honestly, why am I paying to stay here and then also paying to have it cleaned, but also I have to clean it before I leave? Okie doke. I think there's always like a deeper pathway to finding something or to liking something that has to do with something you've always liked, but maybe wrote off that wouldn't normally be considered a hobby, but absolutely is. Something you love that you abandoned as a child, something you've just always been so scared to try, but you need to talk yourself out of like the fear of being bad at it or the, potential embarrassment of it. There are so many valid reasons that trying new things or going places with new people is just like, feels so daunting that it's just always going to be easier to convince yourself not to go. And it's hard to stick with anything you've done one time to feel there's something gratifying about it. But I almost see it as if you're going to binge watch a TV show, you can't just judge it off the pilot. You got to stick with it a little longer. And beyond that, if I don't like a show and I was on my phone the whole time, it doesn't count. We have what I call like no phones shows, and we can't like state definitively how we feel about it unless it has our full attention. Because there's so many shows I have slept on and been like, what a snooze. And then like I actually just focused on it. I was like, oh, this is like outstanding and critically acclaimed for a reason. And I don't know why I was like complaining that I thought Succession was uninspired for years when it's like some of the greatest television ever made. I was like, her clothes are kind of ugly for being really rich. Quiet luxury, Kate, get with it. But we all know I self-identify as more of a loud outlet mall. What was I saying? Oh, it was kind of a spiritual experience for me hearing from so many of you about like your sources of joy and the ways you've gone out of your way to make time, to reallocate time, to refocus on yourself and prioritize your identity. Feeling just joy in a world that is working overtime to pull focus from what is good and what is real and what is fulfilling in life. And sometimes I feel like there's, it's a bit like hollow or frustrating when people, insist you find things that spark joy when things like are actually dire and serious. But that doesn't mean it should eclipse all of your identity and being. And I think as a person with a, somewhat of a melancholic disposition at times throughout life, I've seen time and time again that like when so much is going on around me that I feel like I can't control or that is overwhelming. Hobbies were the only way I found confidence. I was reassured about my own competence. I've talked about a lot how I'm kind of like a very average person and B student, but my parents put a ton of emphasis and praise and good vibes toward my hobbyist ventures, the things I'd do on the side after school, the things I'd make for them, the things that had absolutely no significant meaning, but were treated like they were works of art. I don't know why people think it's bad millennials, like parents told us we were special. May we all be so lucky. When I was younger, it wasn't like the state of the world as much as it was just not feeling very reassured by like the traditional institutional metrics of the school system and like what kind of intelligence they prioritize. There were other types, but I just wasn't really exercising that unless I was introduced to things outside of it. And what I'm saying is institutions are the worst and homeschool your kids. Hopefully you know what I mean. Hobby Kennedy over here. No, I believe in school, believe in education. And yeah, I'll forever be grateful to all the time I spent trying to emulate popular girl handwriting or doodling or writing poems or making signs and banners. And these are all things I've revisited like as an adult that have ultimately become my career because millennials, we monetize. But yeah, I feel like my whole life getting lost in the joy of doing something fun, of making something beautiful, trying something new, of just watching myself progress and get better at something, of just like zoning out and losing track of time. Like these are things I think we have to do, not in avoidance of the hard stuff going on around us that deserves our attention, but to coexist with the hard stuff going on around us, to be able to survive it and to be able to show up without being like exhausted and disillusioned. And like my quality of life has like really skyrocketed in recent months from doing like the most simple, basic things that mostly involve forcing myself to get off my fucking phone. And if I could control it and just like absorb all the fun, interesting, like content that was the TikTok of yesteryear and like when things just felt more pop cultural centric, I lack the ability to see something in passing and then not feel changed for a serious period of time. So it is hard for me to like some days to be able to like casually engage. And it frustrates me because I wish I didn't like internalize things intensely. And I often don't need to because they aren't really things that like matter. They're things that, like that people want you to think matter, so you'll engage with them. And by making it sound like it's the absolute worst thing ever. But I think it's a real problem how we're like activated, but also kind of numb to like what actually is bad and what actually does require action. Because if you're positioning everything as being the source of the demise of democracy at every turn, how are we to not like let things slip under the radar that actually are leaving us at a tremendous threat? And I think the Kimmel thing was kind of a wake up call. Like what happened this past week was like, I think like a close call and a thing that like at a glance, people might not understand like why it was such a big deal. And I bring this up because like, I mean, I'm technically a very small media outlet. I express my opinions for a living. I'm a part of this ecosystem.
I remain committed to being an escapist medium and talking about things in my lane. And this is actually my lane, given I'm a person who broadcasts a show. And like the Kimmel, it was interesting because there was a lot of talk about like what was said. And I'm not even talking anything about the content itself, but I'm talking about the concept here. Is what I think kind of politicians clocked it immediately, thank God, on both sides, which was shocking and kind of like a, whoa, I've been waiting forever. So many boundaries have been pushed and pushed and pushed. And then you just worry that like at one point, it's like a line's going to be crossed here we can't go back from. And this was almost that, at least I think. And I'm glad we saw some recourse, even though I remain fearful that that even was able to happen so quickly and such a major network bent over so fast. Like a federal agency threatening regulatory action against a TV network because they didn't like the content of a late night talk show. It's not to call it government overreach would be to be putting it lightly. It's quite literally step one of an attempt at media control that is a frightening example of using regulatory authority to retaliate against protected speech in a highly partisan manner from an agency that's supposed to be acting in the public's best interest and providing a public service, not putting political pressure on, like, this is a very different situation because of the regulatory power of the FCC. Like, we're not talking about, like, private companies making private decisions. We're talking about the government being able to intercept and control the flow of information, which is incredibly serious.
I understand how, at first glance, some people might have been like, well, this is retribution for cancel culture, for whatever people hate about, like what they call woke behaviors of Democrats that obviously exist on a spectrum of what I think is fair and compassionate and inclusive to just nitpicky, unnecessary, and honestly detrimental to our own party because it just bullies people into silence. Cancel culture is like shitty. And like, yeah, Twitter trolls shouldn't dox people so they get fired. But like, it is different for social pressure to cause private companies to make employment or platform decisions. It is different for, certain events to cause consumer boycotts. But that doesn't involve government regulatory agencies threatening to revoke licenses. It doesn't involve using federal power to pressure media companies to control the flow of information. And media control and suppression of critical voices in this sort of sneaky way where you use regulatory agencies to influence coverage, but not outright censor it. So you have plausible deniability, but you can put pressure on media companies economically through licensing threats, through nightmarish regulatory processes and legal pressure through advertising boycotts. And then in the meantime, you can excessively promote and prioritize the outlets that are friendly and favorable towards your administration while marginalizing critical ones. Like, what's the end game here? What is it if it's not eventually consolidating media ownership among allies, among state control, whatever the hell it is, that domino, the effects it could have based on the, historical precedent of how we know this goes down. This really was so serious. And it is about something so much bigger than like not liking a particular late night host. And going back to my point of, I think that every passing story is positioned to be the worst thing ever. It's almost like losing its meaning. And it's like a weird thing where there's this sustained level of like dread and fear paired with a level of numbness that like, I don't even know what to pay attention to or what's the most important because everyone's incentivized to make everything seem like the worst and to keep us angry and scrolling. Thank God that we'll all be meeting any day now because of the pending rapture. People were able to transcend prioritizing party and could call it for what it is, which is actually a threat to the vitality of democracy and not in a hyperbolic way, in a literal way, that it cannot function without free press and open discourse. Because even if that serves conservatives in the near term, the thing is, it will be their demise in the next. And I understand how this was the concern when the Biden administration was pressuring tech companies to remove certain content during COVID. And that to me was always more about a protection of public health than it was about censorship. But do I understand the concern toward that being a gray area? Yes, I do. But the constitutional distinction is the FCC has direct licensing power over broadcasters, and the Biden administration had no formal regulatory authority over private social media companies or platforms. Anyway, when I say let your hobbies be your escape and don't let the illusion of the world ending with every passing story get the best of you, I don't mean that one. I think that one matters. Oh, I guess the other thing I forgot to talk about, but you don't need to hear because, oh my God, I didn't mean to talk for this long, is that Teddy and I like write songs and jingles and stuff. And then I've been learning how to animate them because he watches a lot of stuff on YouTube. And I'm like, who's making this? What is this? Can I do this? And the truth is, it's actually much harder than it looks, but I've been having fun with it. And we need to get to our conversation with Carmen because it's far more interesting. And again, we'll be back next week to read a bunch of your stories. So enjoy this conversation with Carmen after these brief messages. This episode is brought to you by Harbor, and this is a new advertiser. And relevant to what I just said, one of my favorite things to do in the morning at night is to watch Teddy through the monitor, sing our jingles, and figure out what he's vibing with so I can refine it for our next hit. But this monitor I've been using called Harbor, it solves for like the major pain points that I've had with baby monitors. One of these, for example, is internet connection. Other baby monitors require an internet connection. Teddy's room is in a bit of like a dead zone, and I just had so many panicky moments especially when he was like a newborn. Harbor works with or without internet and lets you check in from anywhere using the mobile app, making it reliable and trustworthy. That you can look at the monitor from the app, but it also has this beautiful 10-inch display where you can see everything very clearly without tying up your phone. I've always had trouble with just the app-based monitors, whether it's grandparents, family members, childcare, babysitters. Like there are people that come watch your kid and you want to have access to the monitor, but I don't love the idea of people having like a 24/7 access to a video feed in my home. It's not only the other people aspect, it's also like half the time I'm doing stuff on my phone and I don't always want the background audio. I just like to have the option of a monitor in front of my face that's separate from my phone. And I love how big this one is. And yeah, it just has interesting features. It simplifies monitoring in terms of having smart audio filters that filter out unnecessary noise so you like hear the ones that matter and actually sleep. And the next thing I appreciate about it is that Monitors cost a lot of money. They just do. But it incensed me to buy a really expensive monitor and then to have to pay like another $150 subscription annually to get the minimum level of features. And like, I still don't get full video logs. I don't know. Harbor, you buy the hardware, you get the core features. It's easy to travel with. It's perfect for the not so tech savvy parent, grandparent with its very seamless plug and play setup. You can watch up to 4 kids at once, and there's no subscriptions ever. And yeah, I'm such a fan. And restore your peace of mind with Harbor, the only baby monitor designed to never fail you. Plus, Harbor has a special deal for my listeners. Use code BeThereIn5 or go to harbor.co/BeThereIn5 for $50 off and experience the security every parent deserves. That's harbor.co/BeThereIn5. This episode is brought to you by Hungry Root. One hobby that is simply not for me is grocery shopping. You know those people that like call the grocery store the market and they just seem delighted going to pick up this and that? I don't. It's just not an enjoyable experience for me, but it can be simple and stress-free. And imagine having your weekly cart filled for you with personalized picks, then shipped right to your door. And taking all that work off my plate is why I love Hungry Root. It takes the stress out of grocery shopping by filling your cart with personalized selections that get smarter with every order, from smoothies and kid snacks to sweets, salad kits, supplements, and more. You can filter it by nutrition goal, so it's only going to send you groceries, whether you're a household that has allergies, food sensitivities, gluten, protein's pretty hot right now. You're focusing on protein, gut health, so you can get food that falls within certain parameters. Beyond that, it really helps by reducing food waste because it sends you recipes that go with the groceries you're sent, but you're given whole groceries, so you don't have to use them for the recipes. Whereas like a meal kit, you're given like a quarter of an onion pre-sliced that's going to expire by nightfall, and it really is only the amount you can use for the specific recipe and not other purposes. And it's like a perfect middle ground between a meal delivery kit that gives you recipes and like a focused thing you can eat for dinner without putting thought into it, but also full groceries that you can use for other things and not waste it if you don't feel like cooking that. And it always gives you recipes that are like 3-4 ingredients, super simple, but they're really good. And their smash burger, we've had like great steaks and vegetables, sous vide chicken's a delight, especially with like kids going back to school and needing to get into like routines. They have a really good kid snack section too that are like easy to throw in lunch boxes or backpacks or whatever. Anyway, take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/BeThereIn5 and use code BeThereIn5. That's hungryroot.com/BeThereIn5, code BeThereIn5 to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/BeThereIn5, code BeThereIn5. Welcome back to the Be There in 5 podcast, Carmen James. I was going to do a formal intro, but I want to practice what I preach here and refer to the work so many people told me about, which is this professor, Dr. Marina Cooley. And she tried 17 hobbies in a year as an experiment. She discovered that in Danish culture, when people ask what you do or they introduce themselves, they talk about their hobbies and not their job. How would you introduce yourself if someone asked you, like, what do you do? And work was off limits.
And work was off limits. I love that question. I'm going to adopt that in my life. If I were to answer that, I would say, yeah, what is the term? A serial hobbyist?
Yes.
I enjoy a lot of art-related hobbies and things like knitting and fiberworks with needlepoint, crochet, quilting, anything related to fiber arts. I feel like I've kind of dipped my toe into, but I also really enjoy challenging myself in different art mediums with colored pencils or acrylics or oil paints or watercolors. Yeah. I think that's where I would start off with, so I wouldn't overwhelm people.
Because you share a lot of your hobbies online, and I like love following along, and you've always advocated for this space. And like, as silly as it sounds, I feel like a lot of us are recently reaching a level of burnout. We're like just starting to like try and sort this out and figure this out as adults. But like, what kind of has made you prioritize, teach yourself new skills and be like, is that something you've always done your whole life, or you did for like a certain reason in recent years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was a teacher for over a decade, and I felt like a lot of my creative energy went into teachers' classrooms are like so beautiful and beautifully curated. And once I stepped out of the classroom, I realized that I felt like I stopped being as creative, and I transferred into like a work from home job and more corporate environment. And I also had more time and more resources to contribute to my creative pursuits. So I started like just looking at things on Pinterest or TikTok and realizing like I've always wanted to try that. What's stopping me now? I had the time, and so I started dabbling that way. But I've always been somebody who is creative. Like in college, I was decorating party cups, and in high school, making t-shirts. And I feel like it's a very quick pipeline from doing those kind of things to incorporating new crafts as an adult or new hobbies in general.
For sure. And like, I think you and I both self-identify as somewhat artsy, and that can sometimes be like a reason, like a gatekeeper or a reason people like think they shouldn't pursue something related to like arts or crafts. But I actually think that like a lot of stuff like fiber arts is way more instructional than it is abstract and creative, you know? I always think people need to remember not to be intimidated by stuff if they don't self-identify as artsy.
I completely agree. I think that's something that I preach too with people. And like, I don't think you need to be artistic or feel that's a label that you apply to yourself to pick up a paintbrush. I think there's so many YouTube tutorials that people could follow to learn this skill. I also like to share that I think it's something you have to practice. And I think that's also what draws me to pick up new hobbies is I really like the thrill of like practicing something and seeing my progression with it. But I agree. You don't need to label yourself as artsy to be interested in arts. And things like fiberworks, like needlepoint is basically like paint by numbers, but for threads.
Oh my gosh, you know what I like love watching that I should just try that I don't really know what I do with the end product though. Do you ever see on like TikTok or Reels people doing like the diamond?
Oh, yeah.
Like that
Like
looks
so
so
soothing.
satisfying. I'm like, you can do
Yes.
three at once? Wow. I think like should I ever own a home? Should I ever have a spare room? Do you have like a dedicated craft zone in your home?
Yeah, I
Ugh.
my office is also my craft room, so I've got like behind me my sewing machine and like my little art easel. So,
Oh, you sew with a sewing machine?
yeah, it was a Christmas gift and I just started learning how to sew. I mean, I did when I was younger, but it was just hemming pants. So I've
Yeah.
made a quilt so far, I made a little bag, but it's intimidating. I feel like it's intimidating for me.
It's very intimidating. I had one as a kid too, and I mostly would just like force pillowcases onto like relatives. Because when you like first sew a pillowcase inside out and then turn it right side and see how like clean your stitch looks, even if it's not, it's like, holy shit, I'm a fashion designer.
It's a thrill. Yeah.
It's a thrill. But the whole bobbin threading, like I think the like physics of it and like how much you have to do to set it up, like that's where I get overwhelmed and like things get tangled and it's a lot of troubleshooting.
Yeah, it's a lot of troubleshooting. I've been on the phone with the manufacturer quite a few times, and I've met Debbie in California who works for the company, and I know her like direct line now.
And see, that's where also you have to have like some stamina because it's like hobby should be fun, summer should be fun. The tendency to be like to want to quit when you kind of run into that is strong. But like per the thing about a serial hobbyist, it's not only do you have to practice the individual craft, you also have to like I think practice starting and stopping stuff and like getting used to like not being good, being okay with quitting, and it really not mattering if it's like a productive use of time.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's something that I had to get over. I'm like, what am I going to use this random needlepoint ornament I made for? Okay, one time during Christmas, I just spent 10 hours dedicated towards it. And just realizing like taking the productivity out of something that is supposed to be fun for you, I think it's such a huge lesson to learn. And it's something that is very valuable for like where we are at as a society and just doing something because it's going to be beautiful or finding an alternative purpose instead of how am I going to use this? Like it's nice if you create something that's useful, but I don't think that's what hobbies are for all the time.
I think you almost just have to jump into something and watch yourself not care if it was quote unquote a good use. It's almost like a good use of time. I think the like idea of spending time on something is more daunting, and then once you get into it, you're like, there's something so nice about just getting in a flow and taking your mind off stuff. I like don't even know anymore how to like clear my head unless I am forced to focus on something else.
It's meditative. Yeah, it's definitely a meditative
Yeah.
process. It's so meditative to just put something on a page and watch the color spread, or when you're knitting and you're like, see the rows progressing. And it's sometimes I find myself like doing it. My husband is like, you're knitting raw right now. No music on, no TV on. It's just like
You're
just
knitting raw.
knitting raw. Yeah. Like nothing to entertain you except what you're doing. And I'm like, oh yeah, it feels like wholesome in a great way to just be with yourself.
For sure. And sometimes I wonder if people have kind of a tense relationship with hobbies because we people had so much time during the pandemic and were forced inside. Like, I almost wonder if there's a tense relationship there with doing stuff that maybe was trendy, but they weren't actually that interested in. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Like the tie dye.
Tie,
What were
I was
people
just gonna
doing?
say tie-dye. Oh my God, so much tie-dye.
So much tie dye. So many sweatsuits, so many shirts, oversized shirts.
Tie-dyeing is like hard.
It is hard. The people who like really make meticulous designs with rubber bands, I'm like, how do you figure that out?
Absolutely. And it's like real messy. I think that's something to look inward too and ask yourself your level of comfort with mess and cleanup and setup.
And then like organizing everything. If you're gonna have multiple hobbies, it can get overwhelming. But I agree with you. I think you'll know if something interests you if it keeps coming up and you're just drawn to it. Like, I have friends who I'm trying to think what other hobbies. I mean, there's so many different ones. Like embroidery is beautiful, but for some reason I'm just like, I'm not drawn to it right now. And a needlepoint is so close to embroidery, but I'm like, I just don't want to do that. So I'm not gonna, even though it's beautiful and probably could find a use for it and could find things that I would want to make.
Yeah, it's like that's why like different mediums of art, like I theoretically love watercoloring, but I don't have the patience for it anymore. Things got shit has to dry, and that's tough.
Yeah. And I think, same here with watercolor. I bought like a watercolor book that I saw people using, and I was just like, I want to do something consecutively. Like, I need a motion and like ongoing motion. I don't want to like change colors frequently, but I love the end result so much. It's so pretty.
It's so pretty, and they're like good gifts too. But I also like just started realizing things I like to watercolor and not being overly ambitious. Something really fun to watercolor, lemon slices. Everybody-
Ooh.
like you kind of have to find stuff that like yeah, you can feign a level of skill. It's kind of funny because I was really loving watercoloring, especially going through like a period of grief. It was like helping me a lot. But then I was kind of feeling like, okay, I'm messing up a lot and it's irritating me. And with a simple it's not all doom scrolling because with a simple scroll, saw somebody using acrylic markers. I'd literally never heard of them in my life. And I've now bought 4 sets in the past 6 weeks and I do it all the time. And I'm like, I would have never I would have never known this is satisfying for me. And I don't even know why. But it's basically like drawing with paint and you can kind of like alcohol markers, you can overlap colors in a way that's like really exciting.
I think I saw one of your banners. It turned out really great. Was it for
Thank
your
you.
son's birthday?
Yes, I started with my son's second birthday. I don't know what I'm doing. But to your point, I think that like it's kind of what I say too when people are like, I don't have a passion back when we were trying to all find our passions. It's really about if you start doing something and you're counting the minutes, that's not it. But if you find yourself doing something and you lose track of time, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think that's true. And I think you can definitely, as a litmus test, see how all in you are. Because
Yeah.
I think when I'm really interested in something and I spend a lot of time researching in it, once I start learning like the history behind it and like joining different communities. I think that's a really great litmus test for yourself. But I also think there are some people who just want to dabble. And I'm like you, where once I start something, I'm all in. And I'm like, why do I have 600 colored pencils now? And I just started a month and a half ago, but I love it and I wouldn't trade it. And it feels like something that I want to do and improve and get better at and figure out all the different techniques and all of that.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I want to see less Hermes unboxings and more people with like a fresh set of pens and a dream. Like, show me how they write on paper.
Right. I mean, speaking of hobbying, have you seen like journaling, junk journaling?
Junk journaling looks so fun.
Yes, I know. It does look so much fun. And I'm like, it's also intimidating. Like, how do you make such pretty spreads? But it's like, I think it's beautiful.
It's
Uh,
so cool. And it's a great way to bridge a more chaotic style with the regimen of like journaling or keeping like a schedule. Because like I've bought more planners in my life than thrown. I've just accepted that as a person. I'm not a person who has a physical planner. I'm not organized or consistent enough. And then I got really obsessed with Bujo, bullet journaling in the 2010s.
Yeah. Who was it? I had my, what's it, Lectrum,
Yeah, me too.
1917.
You want me to drop $60 on a leather-bound notebook? I won't
Yeah.
even flinch. But yeah, and because that was the one with the dots, right?
Yeah, like a
Oh,
dot grid or a
oh, I love a
graph
dot
grid.
grid.
Yeah.
But part of the problem like I think back then I was way too focused on like I'd find stuff I liked aesthetically and then I'd try to match the aesthetic and wouldn't just do it
Hmm.
my way. And then I got frustrated with bullet journaling because mine like weren't as clean as other people's.
Yeah. Or like they people would spend a lot of time on their like monthly spreads or their habit trackers. And but like my January would look great because I did journaling too. But by maybe March or April, it would just be like me just drawing lines freehand. Creating my
Exactly.
own thing. I'm like, I don't have time for this. But it's nice that I tried it.
It
And
is nice. Well, actually, I wrote down a list. So I was not expecting to get like 100+ emails about hobbies, but I was very moved by people sending in theirs. So a lot of needlework, like you mentioned, needlepoint, cross stitch, crochet, knitting, quilting, sewing. With visual arts and creative, we have the usual suspects, but we also have box making, like Japanese paper boxes,
oh.
wood burning, sand pouring, which very 90s obsessed, and also people still enjoying puff painting. Do you remember like puff painting iron on decals?
Yes. Like, well, like,
Christmas
okay. So,
sweatshirts?
yes, I'm like, I think I still have some or some bags my mom made where you would like put on the fabric and then like outline it with the puff paint. Is that what
Oh
it
yeah,
is? Yeah.
precisely. You know how people have ugly sweater parties? I'm like, we should be puff painting sweatshirts.
They're actually really cute, especially with the oversized sweatshirt and like biker short trend still being on point. Like, yeah.
Um, Extra points if you can find yourself a turtleneck that when you fold it over, it has a candy cane design.
Cute. Yes.
That's the stuff. Like, as kids, like I
Little
would match. Yeah.
matching socks. Yeah, a little bow.
And like something that the emails also opened up me up to like convincing me to try things that I'm curious about that I already decided I wouldn't be good at. Like, I don't know if I can find the email, but one person was saying that voice lessons.
Didn't
Oh, yeah.
oh, I was gonna say, gee, thanks, I just bought it. Caroline started taking voice lessons again too.
Yes.
That
You
was, yeah,
you
that
can
was
convince
impressive to
yourself you've
me.
like aged out of it or something,
Mhm.
which isn't the case. But somebody basically was just saying that like it's not like singing is as much as about natural talent as it is like a muscle that you have to like exercise and you have to practice. And it's so much about technique and control. And like you'd be surprised that if you just take lessons and learn how to properly sing, that even just like casual singing, you'll actually sing fairly well. You're just like doing it wrong. And I was like, that is like even just because I sing a lot more like to my son and stuff now, and I have such a bad voice. I'm like kind of interested in like if that's true.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And don't scratch anything off of your list just because you feel like it doesn't apply to you or that it will look silly. I feel like that's where I hear most people wanting to not get into hobbies. They feel like they'll look silly trying, or it's just I'm a medium singer. And it's like, actually, who cares if you're a medium singer if it's still something you're interested in? Like I've always wanted to be better at harmonizing. Like my college roommates make fun of me because I would try to harmonize to every song on the radio. And I'm just like, I don't know, I don't have the ear for it, but maybe if I took voice lessons, I could develop that.
Yeah, train the ear. Can you sing?
Yeah, I was in choir growing up,
Uh,
and I was an alto, so it's surprising that I'm not great at harmonizing, but
oh yeah, they're the
Mhm.
harmonizers, aren't they?
Yeah. Sometimes I would turn off my mic.
You know what's interesting is I got more than I think it was at least 3 or 4 emails of people in different cities that have joined adult choirs, and they're not like religiously affiliated, but they're kind of like Sunday fun day choirs that still meet on Sundays. And I was like, kind of love that.
I love that because the joy of singing together, there's nothing like it. It's just like attending a concert, but you're a part of it. And I don't know. I love that. I think there should be more adult choirs that aren't religiously affiliated. And if there are retired choir teachers out there who want to start them, I encourage them.
Yeah, I know. I was like wanted to look this up. And I also think like what I was talking about earlier in terms of we self-identify as artsy, so maybe this is less intimidating for us. I think that paying attention to not only where your like skills bend, but also where your interest bends, because I could not be more interested in all things musical instruments, singing, musicals, choirs, dance. Like all of my
Yeah,
entertainment time is spent watching people that have those skills and wishing I tried or had it, but I never have ever tried any of it.
oh
And now, in
really?
reading these emails, I'm like, that's an interesting question. Well, does that mean you can't do it just because you wouldn't be the best at it? And that's something I wanted to talk about too, is like the fear of looking stupid or embarrassment, because a lot of these things do require you showing up to things like in groups. Have you done any hobbies that are more like class-based, community-based, or have kind of forced you to be bad in front of people?
Yeah, oh my goodness. I signed up for adult ballet class and jazz recently, and it's humbling. I did do ballet as a child, but I mean, I've been off of it for 18 years, so haven't been at a bar for that long.
What was it
And
like?
it was such an experience. First, I had to get over my prior dance training where it was like you were expected to be perfect. It was all about technique, and just realized this is for fun and
Hmm.
for exercise. But realizing one part of it was like seeing how my body has changed with age and what's
Mm.
more difficult for me, but seeing like seeing other women do it and us progressing together and being able to be an adult learner, I think is such a valuable skill. And I think so often we're expected to pretend like we know everything, we're great at everything, and that we don't have any weaknesses. And being
Hmm.
in that class was like, no, your weaknesses are what's going to be highlighted because we want you to improve. And if we're not pointing those out, you're not going to improve. So that I think that's like a mental challenge as somebody who is a perfectionist or recovering perfectionist. I'm like, why are you pointing out that I did not point my toe on that leap?
I know. Some of
And
us don't take any feedback well.
yeah, I'm like, I think you could have just kept that to yourself.
Yoga
But
teachers, all I'm good. I don't need to arch my back. Don't touch me.
yeah, yeah. And I think it does matter to like find if you are interested in dance, because I think a lot of my followers were asking about that, like finding a studio that's not as like they're not going to require a uniform
Right.
unless you want that type. It just depends. But
And you
yeah.
almost have to remember, if you're in an environment that you feel comfortable, or you're not an asshole, like you're not really like singling out and noticing people that aren't good at it or feeling any one way about them, you know?
No, not at all. Yeah, like in dance class, I think we're all looking at ourselves in the mirror. And if we see
Yes.
somebody do something incredible, everybody starts copying. Like we're just so excited for one another. And it's a really positive environment. And as new people join the class, like I can see them coming in and being like intimidated. I'm like, just wait till we start dancing. You won't be intimidated and you won't have the time to be. Like it,
1,000%. I was looking at dance classes recently and I was like, it's funny because I don't even really know how what jazz is, or like I didn't know what type of dance to even pick. You know what I mean?
yeah,
There's
yeah.
almost like such a lack of knowledge where I just like I don't. I'd be scared about what to wear. Like there's just a lot of barriers for me, but I think I'm gonna try one eventually. My
Yeah.
one of my friends just did her birthday party and I was sick and couldn't go and I'm upset. And it was she took her all of her friends to a class where they did a palm squad routine.
Wait, that's so fun.
Isn't that genius?
That is. I love that Palm Squad. That's not
Like
what I
the
was expecting you
DCC
to
of it
say.
all. I
Yeah.
know. I was like, God, that is so smart.
That's,
I really appreciated people also telling me like their age and like what they started and when, because I do think we can convince ourselves we've aged out of things. And like one that I really thought was cool, like this person said, after a child of idolizing Michelle Kwan and Tara Lipinski, I finally took ice skating lessons this year at age 35. It's been so much fun. I'm the oldest in my class. I went from being okay recreational skater to someone who can do spins. As a mom, it's nice to be away from everything and on the ice focused on myself. I stay after class for open skate and just enjoy myself. Open skate is also really drilled in that no one's watching you and no one cares. And no one's thinking, why is this 35-year-old mom out here? And it's like so true. And I was like, I was like, that is an ultimate example of like something. Yeah, there was a lot of emphasis, I feel like, on ice skating in the 90s, and I was very hooked to Olympic ice
I
skating,
mean,
and that's really cool. I'm genuinely bad at that, though.
I don't think I've had as much exposure to that. One of my best friends was an ice skater growing up, but I mean, yeah, the Michelle Kwans, like
I think I like the
And
outfits too.
I was just about to say the outfits, and for some reason the like seamlessness of the tights with the white skates. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. That's such a yes.
Like, it's just like such a great combo.
Do the tights go over the skates?
No, oh no, I think the tights go inside. It's like leggings.
But you know how
Like,
sometimes
oh,
Olympic
sometimes,
skaters they have like their skin tone?
yeah. Well,
Mm.
and then sometimes they have like a leg warmer that's just, like more thin. I'm sure a professional skater is like listening to us. They're like, oh gosh, what are y'all talking about?
I think I was very drawn to like just doing anything involving like like a cute leotard, spin around skirt type of thing when I was a kid. But yeah, now I guess some people do. I'm not as inclined to wear skirts when I work out, but
A
it would
little score.
probably be fun.
Yeah. Well, when I started ballet, I like was just wearing, like leggings and a shirt, but I've gotten leotards and like cute little skirts, and it does like make you feel like an actual ballerina. So it's fun. And people will still show up in shorts and a t-shirt, so it's not like there's not a uniform, but if you want to invest in the clothing to make you feel more like you're playing the actual part, I highly suggest it.
Totally agree. Also, I'm like inspired too, like people writing in that like, around when like they turn 30, they with like out prior experience, I think, started taking cello lessons. It's one thing to take up the piano. A lot of us took piano lessons, but like picking a giant singular instrument, like that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, or like the harp.
Oh, can you
I've always
imagine?
wanted to play the harp, and like, how do you even get started? Like, what do you need to do?
I know. How does one acquire a harp to practice on?
Yeah. And there's like the little tiny ones that you see like in cartoons. You can start on that one.
Yes. And the thing about instruments is that's funny too is like I feel like depending on where you went to high school, like there comes a point where weirdly like band, playing instruments, theater, like a lot of the arts become like a little bit uncool or like nerd coded, or people that are like would get really good at like the cello or viola or whatever. Like I would have friends that were like skilled concert, like had orchestral skills, and I like wouldn't even know. It was almost like parts of themselves that they hid. Or like I found out my husband like played the saxophone like 3 years into dating, and I think that it's a funny thing that, like, yeah, kids prioritize. It's like everyone at one point probably takes up at least one instrument, if not just the
Mhm.
recorder. But
Yeah.
like taking up an instrument as an adult is like something almost never hear people do if it's not piano or guitar.
Yeah, and it would make sense for us to do. I feel like
Yeah.
there's other things that have just been popularized, but I think also like when I think about building community and moving, so grew up in Louisiana, and I now live in Charlotte, North Carolina. And moving here, I'm like, oh, like how do you build a community without like just going to church? Because that's everyone's answer. Go to church.
Yeah.
And I
Or work.
found, yeah, or work, yeah. And I work remote. So like neither of those are options for me out of choice or out of necessity. And have found community through most of my crafts. It's like a needlepoint group that meets. I started a book club, and we just are getting together to craft. So we're gonna get together and like share our hobbies and like try new ones together. So I think that's a really great avenue for building community, especially if you're not artsy or you're not sporty, you don't want to join like an intramural league as an adult. Like there are other things that you can do, like the choirs that you mentioned.
How did you find that community? Like find people that either did or wanted to do your hobbies?
Yeah, for needlepoint, I think I mean, for needlepoint, if you go to a store, you can like, there's tons of different groups. So typically they're more like geared towards like older women, but luckily in Charlotte, there's a new group for like younger people who were getting together. So I found that through like a local store. I found another community through TikTok. They were just like, hey, I'm starting this group. We're going to meet on Zoom. And it ends up that like a lot of people who meet in that Zoom live on the East Coast. So we like meet up every now and
Meet up on
again.
Zoom.
Yeah. So we meet up on Zoom every week, either Monday or Wednesday. And if anyone's interested, I can send you all the link. Some people stay on until like 3 a.m., but I get off because like I've got to get up in the morning. But we just like sit and gab, and it's a needlepoint.
Okay, That's really cool because I think we need community and we need friendships, and they're such a big part of our life growing up and as young adults. It just, but people, yeah, like your time gets so divided. Adult friendships really do feel hard. And especially for people that are shy, I can talk myself out of going to group things quite easily. But that's like a perfect example of like a low barrier to entry thing. You could join, you could try, very low stakes, and like just get used to being around new people through a shared interest. And I feel like that would almost be a gateway to doing it more.
Yeah, it gives you, especially meeting over Zoom, when getting to know people that way and then like planning to meet up, you still have that anxiety of like, is this person going to like me in person as much as we do on the internet?
Yeah.
And typically I find that's not anything to worry about. And also just like gives you something to talk about, gives you something to do, and like it helps bridge that awkwardness that you sometimes feel when making friendships as an adult.
Yeah. I like it's almost cool too because I have so many thoughts these days about the ecosystem run with companies like Meta and TikTok and keeping us scrolling, keeping us addicted to scrolling. The professor whose work I was researching prior to this episode, Dr. Cooley, she argues that a big reason, not the only reason, our attention's divided for many different reasons, but a lot of times she found that when people would say they don't have time for hobbies, what they meant is like I spend a lot of my free time scrolling, and that if you like actually try to do the exercise of like forced removal of digital distractions, people were kind of amazed at the hours freed up and maybe don't realize how much time that takes. And like, is that something you're able to do? Like, carve out time to scroll and stay updated and participate in what's going on in the world and on social media, but then also devote time to yourself? Or do you kind of have like systems in place to say, like, I'm doing this at this time or whatever?
Yeah, that's so funny that you asked that because I've just had to develop a system because I found when I was really engrossed in my art, like I would do it after work. I would like spend time with my husband, we would go on a walk, eat dinner, and then I'm like in my craft room, just like painting, or sometimes we'll watch TV together and I would knit, but I would kind of abandon social media or like responding to messages from friends or sometimes even like phone calls because I'm like, I'm so engrossed in this. And when I'm hyper fixated on something, it's hard to pull me out of it. And so I'm like, okay, now I need to develop a system. So I try and set like a very minimal goal to see how it feels to achieve that every month. So I'm like, I want to create like 2 colored pencil drawings this month. Okay, here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it like 3 days a week because that helps me feel like I still have time to, reach out to family members because I don't live near family, and to spend time with my husband, spend time with friends, and also be on TikTok and Instagram, which are important to me because I like to keep up with what's going on and be able to share things with people. And yeah, I think it's difficult. I think there is a way to incorporate it. And I think it ebbs and flows. So I think sometimes you'll be so engrossed in your hobbies, and other times you will put them to the side and you will put them down, and that's okay too. Like
Yeah.
you haven't forgotten about them. It's not like you're not prioritizing them. It's just, I think that's just how life is. Everything is seasonal.
That's so true. I kind of hate like screen time and scroll shame because it's like there's so much going on. It's impossible to not feel like overwhelmed, but also to desire like to be in the know. And these things are designed to keep us scrolling. It's not really our fault. It's and the systems I think are important because it's just like having some sort of structured way to get to kind of snap yourself out and task switch, which I find is almost the hardest part. Kind of to your point about once you're in a hobby, it's hard for you to answer to people. It's like I just creating structure around the way or timing that you're forced to switch, I think is huge. Sometimes I find myself continuously scrolling just because I haven't found anything of interest or productive that I've done with that scrolling time. And then I keep scrolling till I feel like it was a good use of time. And like how that's like so pathetic.
No, but I would like, it's so interesting because it's like a double-edged sword because I'm like, without TikTok, and I do talk a lot about TikTok, but because I'm on there frequently, but I'm like, I wouldn't have found so many of the hobbies that I'm interested in. And also, it's such a great resource. So when I'm trying to learn a new stitch for knitting or for needlepoint, I can search that on TikTok and there's tons of videos and like it's so helpful. So I'm like, it's a useful tool, but I have found that like with cutting my time down a little bit with it, I have time for my hobbies. And I also think it doesn't feel like a sacrifice and I don't feel like I'm missing out as much sometimes with TikTok because I'm so interested in what I'm picking up. That's like
Yeah.
a nice little balance.
Oh, I mean, I'm so grateful to TikTok for showing me acrylic markers. Like, I feel like without being exposed to this stuff, and then by absorbing it and teaching algorithms to show me more of it, like, I agree. It's almost like not fully demonizing our feeds because there's so many perks to it. And like, just kind of being mindful of going back to the version of you that actually did use these platforms to be inspired or to socially connect. Like, throw it back in Meta's face. If you're in a Facebook group about knitting that ultimately gets you offline and in front of people knitting, that's the best way to use social media is to like actually be social. And I think I forget about that part of it too sometimes. It's now they feel like information hubs, but it used to just be
Mm.
about like sharing.
Yeah, and connecting and finding people who are like-minded. Sometimes that's a little bit of a bad thing.
Right. You're right.
But
Hashtag rapture talk. Glad we've made it so far. Congrats.
I know. Or have we, should it be
Have we?
congratulations? Are we left behind?
The 25th.
Well, I'm like, maybe people have disappeared and we haven't known. I just have to check in with Kirk Cameron. Like, I'm on Kirk Cameron talk to
Wait,
see
is
that.
Kirk Cameron publicly endorsing rapture?
I don't know. I don't know, but
Oh,
I just like
it's
consider him.
fascinating.
It is. Of hobbies.
No, literally, that's been one of mine this week. And wait, okay, because I was thinking about the Left Behind series earlier, and you didn't, because in some versions of Apocalypse Truthers, they're very that being left behind is good. And I think in the book series, it was bad. And then you had like a 7 year tribulation to fight the Antichrist, and everyone else like went to heaven. Is that what that was about?
Yes, and I learned from Raptor Talk, those are called pre-tribbers, where they
Honestly, at least we're learning, Carmen.
Yeah. See, it's an information hub.
Trevor.
Just like you said, yeah. There were, yeah, like where there's the rapture and then the 7 year trials, which is like why there were so many left behind books because they had one for like each year. And then there would be like the second coming and like the judgment period to see like how you spent those 7 years. Like no pressure.
Literally, because I remember reading them and feeling kind of traumatized by them. But then I was like, because I think I was conned into believing they were sci-fi adjacent. But then once you're sucked into being left behind, you got to know how it ends. But yeah, very fast and the furious levels of sequels.
Yeah, very much so. And like the fear of waking up and on a Saturday morning and you're like, the house is so quiet. Where's everybody? Like, where are my parents? Where are my siblings? Oh, has everybody been raptured? Like,
Oh,
typical fear.
1,000%. And like, I kind of one thing I was kind of glad to see Rapture Talk taking off is because I think it helps to round out our like shock and horror by of extremists with like the slightest ounce of empathy that for a lot of people, their beliefs aren't their choice as much as they are like the emotional framework their entire nervous system was built around as a child when you were taught a level of hypervigilance that you could be burst into flames at any moment of any day and behave accordingly. That is very hard for people to shake, and that is very ingrained in people's like day-to-day belief system that like they at all times need to be ready to meet their judgment. And like I think seeing that these people are so serious is actually kind of important to like understanding how it's a bit deeper than like an ideological exchange in the comment section.
Yeah, it's what their life hinges on.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's how they make decisions and it impacts every part of their life. And they believe it so fully that they're making videos about it and trying to instruct people. And it does, like, I think I was talking to somebody and I was like, my heart kind of just goes out to these people because they are also here on earth living a life that is challenging for them, that they feel like their only way out of it is for this great thing to happen to them. And I think that's where my empathy comes in. Because I'm like, what are they going through? What are people experiencing? And also, we can change things here. I mean, don't be so focused on this, but I also know it's part of their DNA almost.
I heard a comedian say once, and this like stuck with me. that like the ultimate display of white privilege is not really caring that much about the afterlife. And I was like, whoa. And he kind of talked through how like for
Because
so
your life is
long,
so good.
yeah, especially like so many like different communities around the world, like that are so faith-based and faith-focused. It's like a lot of that is based in a history of hardship that
Hmm.
faith was essential for survival. And like when you kind of think about religion that I don't know, this is like a deeper, more existential discussion, but I thought it was kind of an interesting way to think about privilege in terms of kind of writing off yeah, some religious things as being a bit fantastical or like whatever. It's like, no, it's just so much deeper than that. If you're not worried about heaven, your life's probably pretty good.
Probably so. I think that's such a great point. And I've seen that a lot just within the Black community with like how it provides hope. And I understand that. Like there needs to be something to anchor you to know that there's a better tomorrow. And if faith is it, then faith is it. And exercise it and practice it because it's going to provide you the, I don't like positivity, but the positivity you need to feel like you can embrace each day. And I think that's also really important to make sure people can hear in a way that feels good to them. And I think religion helps that.
Well,
As
yeah.
much as I like to tease about it.
Oh, I live to tease about it. And I think especially like you and I like have been in these circles and have experienced it and you feel more permission to kind of poke fun at it. And I think also comedy about religion is important because the things people don't want you to laugh at, like, are the things people don't want you poking holes in. It's
Exactly.
important we ask questions. And I don't know. I think that as we feel more of like a democratic decline and like shit hitting the fan and there's so much like a lot of the discourse is people being like at odds with those that are super religious, but I could actually see this going in a direction where more people get religious because things feel so dire and hopeless. It's like you need something to cling to string together your days. And that's why I kind of felt a bit emotional reading a lot of these hobby emails because I could kind of see like a deeper spiritual thing, a deeper feminine thing of identity after motherhood. It's
Mhm.
about so much more than killing time. And I think that's actually something too I wanted to talk to you about. Per the content piece, we're fed a lot of like, or at least I'm fed, probably because I engage with it, a lot of kind of trad wifey content or like rage bait or, your ballerina farms, your Norris Smiths, your homesteaders. There's just been a lot of discourse about these types of people. And when I was reading through emails, there's an interesting tension of like, people feeling like they needed to justify why their hobby isn't like anti-feminist. Does
Mhm.
that make have you like noticed that there's almost like a conflation of like domestic skills, domestic arts with being like trad wifey or it fitting into a particular oppressive gender role? Do you think there's like weird baggage around women doing these things?
Yeah, I think anything that it can be considered as like homesteading or homemakery, people want to. I think sometimes it's a little bit of virtue signaling, like I am not a part of this group. I like these
Yeah.
things, but I am not a part of this group.
Yeah.
And I mean, just like the mental load for women to even just enjoy ourselves with picking up things that make us feel excited, to
Right.
have to like pre-qualify it and let people know like I'm doing this, but I'm not about to join an MLM or I'm not about to do this. Like I just
Right.
am interested in making my own home sense. I'm not joining Young Living.
I just want a
I've been,
signature scent, okay?
yeah. I just want to put some on my wool dryer balls.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, I find that a lot. And I also see, because I'm on TikTok a lot, when they find somebody who enjoys the same hobbies as them, like kind of holding their breath to see what their values are. And I do like feel that's important to like follow people who align with your values and who aren't going to make you feel a certain way. But it's just like, it's difficult that you have to feel like it's an either or thing where it's like you either like this hobby and you're part of this group, or you like this hobby and you're progressive or whatnot. I don't know if that answered your question, but yes,
No,
I
a
definitely
thousand
see it.
percent. I feel this way about motherhood. And I
Mhm.
hear so many of my liberal friends feel like weird about talking about liking being a mom. Isn't that weird?
It's weird because we're taught that feminism means almost denying parts of you that are ingrained in you. Like childbearing. It's like, why do I have to deny that that is something that I enjoy and it's something that I'm proud of and something I like to do to live up to a certain standard of feminism? And I think that's where like the toxic femininity comes in, and
Yeah.
it's something that we have to be aware of, that we're not like falling into that trap.
1,000%. Like I have to actively remind myself when it comes to hobbies, the oppression was never in the skills. When it comes to motherhood, the oppression was never in the raising of kids. It was in the lack of choice. It was in the economic dependence. It was in the domestic labor. It was in the, societal expectations that like these types of things are the only things women can do. And like I think there really is a tendency to devalue especially a lot of like domestic arts that I think is kind of fascinating. And yeah, so, again, TikTok. Really, this is a hobby, a TikTok based hobby episode. I just see so many people in comment sections like, yeah, making weird trad wife commentary about people like cooking for their families. And I'm like, on what planet are we shaming? Like, what do you want them to do? Beyond that, I think I DM'd you or we had an exchange about this because there was like this reporter like grilling Meghan Markle about if her show With Love Meghan is trad wife. And I'm just like, why is that even a question? She likes to cook.
And sweet Megan is like in 2015 and 2012, like stuck in that era. She's like, what do you mean? Like she doesn't even understand.
Her
Like,
answer was so funny.
yeah, but that's like a trend that's happening now, and it's like a resurgence. So like with the Nara Smiths, I think people see certain politicians and public figures saying like womanhood means you're a mother. Women should stay home. Like your body, my choice. Like, and so they think the answer to being in opposition of that is putting down all those ideals. And I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is embodying them yourself in a way where you're able to be a part of those different communities and to be a mother, to be an artist, to love to cook, to love to bake, and also living out your truth and shining your light in a way. And I think being able to like do things that bring you like put you in touch with your passion, put you in touch with your creative side and make you feel like you have that spark again is also like living out in opposition. It's kind of like to me like there's resistance in rest and there's resistance in like practicing joy. And I think there's resistance in being a mother who also is teaching their child how to be anti-racist instead of just pretending like motherhood is a topic that you shouldn't talk about. That's not helpful.
Oh, absolutely. That just gave me goosebumps, what you just said. Like that, I feel like the thing, since I get a lot of emails along the lines of should I or shouldn't I have kids because of childless millennial, the thing I always tell people who feel this weird disconnect between their ideological values and motherhood is like the thing that it's taught me, being a mom doesn't contradict my progressive values. Being a mom is the ultimate extension of my feminist values in terms of how I am choosing to raise my son, in terms of how I choose to spend my time and more community engagement stuff or to be more politically active. Like, and also just the expansion of empathy and like nothing has made me fight harder for being pro-choice than giving birth myself.
I can imagine. I can imagine just how that would light a fire under you and just also like your world opens up. I'm sure like there's so many things that you have so much more insight into. And I don't think we should deny that. I think we should celebrate it. I also, while you were talking, it made me think about how like, I keep going back to needlepoint because it's definitely a expensive hobby. And I think it was only a certain percentage of people could do it because of how time consuming it is, how expensive it is. It's not very accessible at all. Yeah. So like canvases, even if.
Okay. This is different than cross stitching.
Different than cross stitching is, I think, more accessible, but needle pointing, I mean, like a canvas could cost anywhere between like $60 to $100. And that's for you to also then buy the thread and finish it. And then if you want it finished into like a pillow or an ornament, that could cost between, again, $100 to like $400. Like it's a very expensive craft, but because of people joining it and because of its like resurgence in a younger generation, it's becoming more accessible. And I think that's also a really important part about these like hobbies that could be considered like trad wife adjacent. It's like once people with differing perspectives, opinions, and backgrounds join in to this community, it becomes more accessible by default. And I think that's a really important part.
Wow. A needle point of entry, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know a lot of I don't it's hard for me to distinguish different fiber things, but I had no idea needlepoint was that pricey, and it is also pretty time consuming, right?
Yeah, depending on like the size of your project and like the different threads that you use or different stitches. So it can get
I just don't think people are charging enough on Etsy.
probably not. Well, and then like if you on Etsy, sometimes you can just buy the like design and then you can get a canvas and
Oh.
like design it, put the design on the canvas yourself.
It's almost like tracing, but needlepoint.
Yeah, and so like each little square intersection on a needlepoint canvas, there's like intersection little links is a different color. So you could paint it yourself
Oh.
or you could just look at the chart and like design it. So a lot because of this resurgence for needlepoint, more people have gone onto Etsy to sell their designs to like make it accessible for people to paint their own canvases instead of having to
Ah.
go to a website and get it for like $100.
Interesting. But honestly, like the thing I do like about that type of hobby is, as much as I respect the women who I watch TikTok lives of that do diamond painting, it's a lot of tiny single-use plastics.
Yes, yeah. It is. Yeah, that's true. What?
And I feel like needlepoint is like such a cool. I think like it really does help if you need it to be productive at first. Like if it can be a gift, it's really cool. Like getting gifted a needlepoint, a painting, is something somebody made for you. Like I just don't think there's anything better.
It's such a great feeling. I find that people really enjoy it, those like homemade things. That's my goal for this Christmas is to like give more homemade gifts. And I've been like making a blanket for each one of my nieces and nephews once
Oh,
they like hit a certain age because I've got like quilts from my great grandmother that I still
yeah.
love. And I'm like, oh, I want to pass down this hobby and to give them something that they can remember from their childhood.
I love that. I like still sleep with my childhood blanket and that somebody made. And like there is I don't feel like a lot of kids I know really have like their blankies anywhere that aren't like bought from Target.
Yeah, and those are sentimental and like have their uses, but it's just so nice to like be able to give somebody a baby blanket that you crocheted for them and to know like I was pouring like good thoughts for your child into this blanket as I spent these 15 to 30 hours crocheting this, and I want you to know how much you're loved and how much your child is loved. Uh,
Oh,
I love
that's
that.
so
Yeah.
cool. That's
Mhm.
so cool. You should make that a, again, not to monetize or make content out of our lives, but it's what we do. I would love to follow along as you make handmade Christmas gifts, but the problem is, then the people you're gifting will see it.
Yeah, well, sometimes, yeah. I mean, I hide family members like, really quickly.
Oh,
Like, words.
daily.
I don't need my dad, who's a pastor, seeing how I'm making fun of raptor talk.
I didn't know your dad was a pastor.
Yeah, well, he's always he went to theology school, so he's always kind of done it on the side. That's his hobby. That's his
Oh,
like,
okay. Interesting.
yeah, he works for State Farm full time, but he's a good neighbor. And no, it's State Farm. Yes.
Oh, I love that. Good neighbor. That is amazing. No, but I actually wonder if that probably like is kind of a best of both worlds situation where it's to have a spiritual leader, even if you don't ultimately grow up to be the exact same as them, but to not be like ingrained in a church culture where like they're the leader and like you're like, were you the pastor's kid growing up?
Yeah, well, for part-time, he was an elder in the church for a while and then like an assistant pastor, just like interim while our church was hiring. But yeah, I grew up in a pretty like very community-oriented church. Like it was fantastic because you always had like someone you could depend on, but my parents were like in them.
Mm,
So it was definitely eyeballs on Carmen a lot and my sister Courtney, but
yeah. I know church
very
real that's the thing is it really is great for community. You can
it's
find
so
ones you
good.
like.
It's so good. Yeah. And like luckily, like our church is also really like ingrained in the LSU community where I grew up in Baton Rouge. and had a great like international reach. And so I got to really meet a lot of different people where probably like most people growing up in Louisiana didn't have that available to them. So it has its
Yeah.
benefits. Yeah.
It's really cool. I can't believe we've been talking for an hour.
Talked
I
about
need
so many
to,
different things.
oh gosh, so many things. I need to let you go soon. But I guess one thing I wanted to ask, like, okay, did we talk about this? Is there like one kind of like really like far reaching thing that like, what's like a dream scenario of a thing you would try, but like have been scared to, or for some reason, like it feels high barrier to entry, or like, yeah, what would be like your dream hobby?
My dream hobby. I've got to go through my file of facts in my
Yeah,
mind.
literally.
I think a musical instrument, like we were talking about before. I was like, I played the recorder and I did the violin for a little bit, but I think like you, I'm just so drawn to like people's musicality and just like I'm in all of it. But I'm like, my roster of hobbies is full right now.
I know.
Like, how can I add it? And I don't even know which instrument I would like to pick up, but and I think maybe that's why I
Yeah,
haven't made the jump yet because I'm like, I don't want to waste time on guitar.
I know. Well, and that's why we learn about SMART, SMART goals, because yeah, you do have to be realistic about what you have time for,
Yeah.
or else you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, and I did when I was in my 20s. I remember like hearing how Taylor Swift taught herself how to play guitar, and I was like, I'm gonna do the same, and then it just like sat in a corner.
I don't, no, literally, if you haven't gone through a guitar phase, I don't relate to you. Like, I feel like it's the thing I would always try when I was going through like a breakup or a major life change. I was like, I'm just gonna like sing it out. Never did. I would learn like the Saints go marching in.
Yes. I think that's such a great question, though. I have to, I think because recently I picked up so many things that I felt were so out of reach, like quilting and sewing. It feels like I've like achieved for this area or level that I'm at. I feel like I've like been able to reach those goals that I didn't think that I was ever gonna like be a part of my day-to-day life. So I'm like, I need to make a new list of like things that are interest me, but may feel like something for a later season. I'm not sure.
Totally. Because there's some things on this list that I'm like so drawn to that I wouldn't have thought of. Like there's a few people that like committed to adding like whimsy to life, and they got into things like miniatures, like book nooks or fairy doors. And I was like, yes, sign me
Oh,
up.
I love that. I've always wanted to like put a little fairy garden by like in our front
Uh,
yard so when people are walking by or little kids are walking by, they can play with it.
that is
Oh,
really sweet. And I think that would be mine. Like, even though it's a basic like skill and hobby that's like a ton of people have, because of what it takes and because of how many plants I've killed, I think my like pie in the sky dream is gardening, growing
oh.
food. Like when Meghan Markle grabs all those lettuces, I didn't know we said lettuces, but B, she whips up a fresh salad. Her kids like pick with. I'm like, I mean, obviously that requires a lot of like infrastructural hired help too, but like I just think that seems like a magical existence. And I think because it does, that's why it is the homesteading trad wife pipeline of like, it's not really realistic to be a subsistence farmer. It's a very hard life actually, but it
Mhm.
seems really cool. And I think starting with even just keeping some flowers alive, like even summer I turn pretty, like the fresh cut hydrangeas from outside every day in the kitchen. I
Oh
was
my,
like, that adds a level of whimsy to life.
it does. And like being able to like go out to your garden and like even just the knowledge that comes with that, because I've also tried to dabble into gardening and I've killed a lot of like thyme and parsley and tomato plants. But I'm just like, yeah, I do have this image of like waking up early in the morning, it's peaceful and like collecting veggies that are ready or pruning your roses and like knowing what to do or also taking care of animals. I think that's always thrown in there too,
Mm.
because but I'm like, I think it looks a little bit more luxurious than it actually is in real life. Uh,
1,000%. And also, I just realized you were talking about killing Thyme.
oh, not killing time.
I'm like, that's a great blog name for someone trying to learn not to garden and not kill their herbs.
Bypass?
Killing time. But we killed a lot of time here on this podcast. We sure
Yeah,
did.
this was such a fun conversation.
This was the best. You're the best. The Beths love you, and you're
Oh,
always welcome back. And I'm so grateful for you giving me your time. And I hope that you'll keep us abreast of your future ventures because it's like, what do they call it? Cope scrolling, hope scrolling. It's like, I love seeing it. Like, I love people that are cool with the whiplash of like important stuff and whimsy stuff.
that's definitely me. And you've given me a lot of ideas of like how to share and like inspire myself and inspire others in the process. So,
Oh, I love
yes,
that.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at the Good Karma blog.
Amazing. Thanks, Carmen.
Thank you. Thanks, Kate.
That was so fun.
That was so fun. I hope I was able to not keep us too off of track. I feel like we kind of bounced
No.
around, but
Oh, bouncing around is the
the
spice
name
of
of the
life.
game. Yeah.
Exactly. No, I think that was great. And like you're the perfect person because you're not like over specialized. You're like kind of, yeah, a hobbyist in the art of hobbies. And I just to like, yeah, talk about a lot of it's hard to figure out what to focus on because it's not really about like the hobby itself. It's more about like getting past the many reasons people don't
Mm,
try things. And yeah, so that was honestly perfect. And I
their
so
hesitations.
appreciate you.
Yeah. Well, I love hearing what people are doing, but I also hope that more people realize that there's so many doors open to them. So
Well, in the second half of this episode, or I don't know what order it'll be in, I'm reading directly from the emails. So yeah, you'll get to hear some of them too.
cool.
It's really fascinating.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for
Thank
thinking of
you.
me.
Of
Hope you have a good
course.
evening.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.